千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Last line. Last line says, that which is contrary to the Tao soon ends. So this is a reiteration from the other side. If you move against the Tao, you meet an early demise. You won't last. You will perish. So this is why throughout history, powerful empires have declined and collapsed. Now, when you take it down from the level of history to your personal life and think about how when you grew up, the bullies that you saw in kindergarten, in elementary school, in junior high, in high school, even college and university, maybe even your postgraduate degree, postgraduate studies. In all of those settings, as you were growing up, you have seen how bullies simply don't last. It's the same at the workplace. Bullies get their way temporarily. They brag about it to everyone. And before too long, the negative consequences catch up to them. It's a pattern that never fails. And we're seeing this now left and right. If you just pay attention to the news, you notice this pattern everywhere. So there's a little bit more that I want to say about this to wrap this up in a nice, neat package for chapter 30. We're now at the very last line. That which is contrary to the Tao soon ends. I want everyone to pay attention to something that I have said before for previous previous chapters, and that is the last line always connects back to the first line. So notice how it's doing that here. If you remember the first line of this chapter is about those who use the Tao to advise the ruler. That these were the wise ones who would not use soldiers to dominate the world. And that's line 2. So now we can see the entire chapter is about violence, fighting, conflicts, being opposite to the Tao, being against the Tao, not in accordance with the Tao, not the way to go. So the point is, as we live our lives, we have to use the Tao to advise ourselves, to make better decisions. And that decision cannot be to enact violence, domination, etc. So this is what the Tao really is. Not aggressive, not warlike, not domineering, not arrogant. At the same time, though, it is also not passive. And the reason why I say that is because we've got multiple lines. We've got about half a dozen lines that talk about the commander who prevails in combat, but will only do so out of necessity and will not be arrogant, etc. So the Tao is not aggressive, not warlike, not domineering, but also not passive. This is important. And this is what I call the Tao of Peace. And I want to make sure that we see how this is all connected together. I have a slide specifically talking about that. The Tao of Peace. So the last line that you have just seen. If you are contentious, you move against the Tao and will soon perish. All things against the Tao cannot last. The bully that I talked about previously whether it's from elementary school or high school or any other stage of your life, they can't last. So this is the last line. Now let's see how it connects to the first two lines. And the first two lines are the following. Those who use the Tao to advise the ruler, they do not use soldiers to dominate the world. Let's apply that to you, to your life. As you counsel yourself in your interactions with other sovereign individuals in your life, you should refrain from using soldiers. Soldiers is the metaphor for aggression, to attain some sort of domination. That will most certainly get you moving against the Tao. And if you are against the Tao, soon you too will perish, because all things against the Tao cannot last. So that's how these all ties together. Okay, now time for a test question. So I think this is fun, and I want to encourage everyone's participation. I want to hear what you think. I don't think it's too difficult. Let's talk about it. I have a question for you in regards to everything that we have talked about today, and it's a multiple choice question. It's practical. It's kind of a down-to-earth, pragmatic kind of question because it's talking about real life. So here's the question. So you know, having learned from this chapter, you are careful to not provoke or offend others, but you know some of them will try to pick a fight with you once in a while. What is the best way to handle that? So basically what I'm saying is that it's all good and fine that you understand the Tao and you're going to be a person of peace. You're not going to go around picking fights. But what about other people? What about people who want to pick a fight with you? So very similar to the question that we explored just a moment ago with the Buddha, with someone who was a detractor and a critic, and someone who cursed him out publicly. Similar to that. You're not going to go pick a fight with someone else, but what if they come at you? What if they, a lot of times will say, oh, that person, you know, he is really asking for it. Well, we'll say it that way. He's really asking to be smacked down, to be taught a lesson. We say that. So we know that in life, we will oftentimes have people who will try to do that to us. So multiple choice question, what are the choices? I've got 5 choices here. 1, attack them before they attack you. Take care of the problem while it is still small. So I don't know if anyone remembers, but in the Daodejing, it actually talks about that. It actually talks about resolving an issue while it is still small and easily handled. So wouldn't that be the Tao? To nip it in the bud, to head them off at the pass, attack them before they attack you, take care of the problem while it's a small problem? That's number 1. Number 2, do what Jesus would do, which we have seen is similar to what the Buddha would do. And what Jesus would do is turn the other cheek and refuse to engage because it takes 2 to tango. So it seems like we have the Buddha that was very much in agreement with Jesus. He did not engage. And in a similar situation, it took 2 to tango. So the person who was cursing him out, scolding him, he ran out of steam. And then that gift, that presence of negativity still stayed with him. So maybe that's the best way to handle it. Is it? Well, there are 3 other choices. So let's take a look at more. Number 3, go Go all out in your counterattack. Make them regret it so they will never do it again. So this has the appeal, I think, to my younger self when I was a teenager. This is how I thought, that I'm going to overwhelm the other side with so much power and force that they're going to rue the day that they cross me. That was my silly, immature teenage fantasy, power fantasy. How about number 4? Defend yourself and seek reconciliation if at all possible. Well, that sounds likely. That seems like, reconciliation is a theme in the Tao that you want to turn enemies into friends. Number 5, the last choice. Ignore them, for they hurt only themselves. So wouldn't it be the same application of the line that we have seen in this chapter, that the negativity they harbor in their hearts would also poison them, that they would also suffer and be damaged when they harbor such hate against you? So these choices are intentionally set up to be a little confusing, to be a little bit vague. And I want to respond and pick the best choice from a Tao perspective. And I can already see that some people have the right answer. For those of you who are not sure, I think we can make things easier by a process of elimination. Let's go through them one by one. So attack them before they attack you. Take care of the problem while it is still small. I'm going to have to say that's not the best way. So the chapter in the Daodejing that says to resolve an issue when it is still a small issue before it shows signs of big trouble, there's wisdom in that, but it should not be misapplied to imply, to say that you want to preemptively attack someone before they attack. Instead, if you sense hostility, you certainly want to take action while the matter is still relatively small. You want to do that by reaching out a hand of friendship, in attempting to understand what the problem is, and having that understanding resolve the conflict before it even occurs. So the action that you would take in accordance to the Daodejing is not to attack before they attack, but to reach out to them and communicate before it comes to a conflict. So I have to say, I'm going to have to cross out the first one. That's not the Tao. Number 2, do what Jesus would do, which we have seen is similar to what the Buddha would do. How about the Tao? How about the Tao perspective? It seems to be congruent with the Tao as well. So here I'm going to say not quite, because what Jesus taught and what the Buddha taught are closer to pacifism. What the Tao taught, and remember, the Tao came to us from the time of the warring states. What the Tao taught is a little bit different in that if you have no choice but to fight, do so with the following rules, with a series of rules. Therefore, the Tao is not about turning the other cheek. The Tao is, in some cases, when you have no choice, about taking action. So there are times when you don't want to engage. Definitely true. It's the same in the Tao. But there's going to be times when, for instance, survival is an issue, or you have to defend a cause or protect loved ones. Then you have to take action. then you may not have the luxury to turn the other cheek. So when that is the case, we should also cross out number 2. So I think these are fairly obvious. Let's take a look at number 3, counterattack. Well, I think from this particular chapter, you see that the commander who understands the Tao will never do more than is necessary to accomplish an objective. So to go all out, overkill would certainly not be the Tao. And then number 4 and 5, purposely make them to be likely choices. And, it can be a little confusing. I can certainly applaud the virtue and the thinking behind pacifism, behind the great wisdom taught by Jesus as well as the Buddha. So all I'm saying is that Lao Tzu taught a slightly different lesson. So let's take a look at 4 and 5. Defend yourself. Okay, that's taking action. See reconciliation. Yeah, hopefully turn enemies into allies if at all possible. May not be possible, but deserves a try. Number 5, ignore them. Okay, well, that may not be practical because someone may be coming at you and you have to do something, even if that something is just to back away and avoid. So you can't necessarily ignore something that is happening or someone with hostile intentions. And they may be hurting themselves, but suppose they cause collateral splash damage and it affects you too, or the people who are innocent bystanders. So you may not always be able to afford the luxury of ignoring someone, ignoring a troublemaker. So then, number 4 is the choice. And it seems like number 4 and number 5 are superficially the same, but remember, the Tao is about taking the appropriate action. Sometimes the appropriate action is to stay back and observe. Other times, the appropriate action may be to put some distance between yourself and the source of problems. And in rare occasions, when you have mismanaged the situation, so you have to fight, the appropriate action may be to fight. So all of this is part of the Tao of Peace. So let me further explain. So the difference is clear for everyone. The reason why we come at it from so many different angles is just to make sure that it's clear. Pacifism, here's the dictionary definition of pacifism. When someone is pacifistic, that person is opposed to war or violence of any kind. So I got this out of a dictionary. There are variations within the philosophy of pacifism noted, but in the most pure form of pacifism, all violence, any kind of violence, even in self-defense, is rejected. So that isn't exactly the same as the Tao of Peace. The Tao of Peace will say, when your survival is at stake, take action. Now, let me also talk about westernized Tao, which is also not exactly the Tao. It's not the authentic Tao. It sounds like the authentic Tao. It's taught by some of the most superficial gurus that we have, and it is absolutely incorrect. Here's what the westernized Tao sounds like. The Tao encompasses all, so it is only natural that you will sometimes be peaceful and sometimes be combative. No matter which way it happens to be, you simply flow with it. So I say this is superficial because this gives license to someone following his whims to be either peaceful or combative. In the overall sense, because our practice of the Tao is not perfect, sometimes you may find it necessary when you're backed into a corner that you need to be combative. But that's not the Tao. It means you have failed in your practice of the Tao. So to flow with it, to say that the Tao encompasses all, this is the twisted, distorted version of the Tao. So I have to reject. The Tao of Peace says there's nothing good about conflicts. And it doesn't matter if it's a battle between armies or arguments between individuals, it's not a good thing. Therefore, the warriors of the Tao may be supremely skilled in the art of war, but they will only use those skills subject to certain conditions, stringent conditions, conditions expressed by Lao Tzu in this chapter. So this is extracted from the middle of the chapter, the 6 conditions about Tao cultivators. When can they fight? What happens when they fight? Well, number 1, they fight only when there is no other way out. When survival is at stake, as I mentioned, when you must defend the cause or protect loved ones, when you're backed into a corner and you have to fight to get out of a bad situation, take action. When there's no other choice, take action. Now, when you're backed into a corner and you have to fight your way out, after that, you have to review, how did I get backed into a corner? That should not have happened. So number 2, do what is necessary and then full stop. So Tao cultivators, the second condition for them to go into battle is that they will only do the minimum necessary, stop as soon as possible. No such thing as overkilling the Tao. The Tao is a practice of compassion. You want to do the least amount of harm and preferably no harm at all. Number 3, no bragging. Never brag about victories, because when you really see everything from the eyes of the Tao, you know there are no true victories in battles. No true victories in physically defeating someone else. The truest victory of all is when you overcome yourself. That is also made clear in the Daodejing. Number 4, no flaunting. So it's not just talking about it, which is bragging or boasting. It's also to not display signs of success, to flaunt, to show off. No flaunting of success, because no one truly succeeds when they clash with other people. Everyone will end up suffering. Number 5, no arrogance. Tao cultivators will not become arrogant for having achieved their objectives. Instead, that achievement humbles them. For all those reasons. Number 6, the last one, Tao cultivators will not become domineering over those they have bested. Instead, they wish to extend friendship. They are apologetic that a conflict was necessary. They never meant for it to go that far. And now that it has, it's time to remedy the situation. It's time to make up for the lack that led to the conflict in the first place. So the Tao of Peace, this is as clear cut as I can make it. This is exactly as clear as possible how Lao Tzu sees conflict in general. This is the purest and most accurate presentation of the way that Lao Tzu will look at warfare and also interpersonal conflicts. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.